that is the XAUUSD, popularly known as the gold spot. And on the gold spot this week, we've been selling actually, though we had a position at the beginning of the week. Remember, we had a buy position triggered on the 50 minutes time frame. For those who have been with us since the beginning of the week, remember we had a 100 pips move around this area. We capitalized on this move before we begin to notice lower highs in this particular market. And of course, we were able to connect the series of lower highs to give us this descending trend line, which of course has been guiding our trading activities throughout this week. And of course, as long as price remained below that descending trend line, we had no business buying the XAUUSD. So we had kept on selling. We sold at the breakdown of the 1930. Remember, we sold here again on Wednesday, and of course we sold again around this area on that same Wednesday, again giving us about 120 pips thereabout. Then during our live session yesterday, we begin to see an interesting setup gradually unfold on this chart. And one of the key things we saw here was this impulsive move that happened on Wednesday. We took that into consideration. And as soon as price got into the 1,914 zone, we begin to see buy pressure. Then I was telling us yesterday that we might likely be seeing a retracement of that impulsive bearish move that happened. That is, price might retrace back into an area. So we used our Fibonacci retracement tool to identify a golden zone area which falls within the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg, hereby giving us a sell window around the 1,928 and of course the 1,924 area, where I told us yesterday that we shall be looking out for reversal patterns to join the bearish move. Now, in addition to this observation, we also talked about the potentials of buyers that we said if price breaks out of this descending trend line, that we might be getting ready to buy. And in fact, since I was profitable on the XAUUSD this week, I had a buy position triggered, which unfortunately I was taken out in a loss on that one before I joined this bearish move, had the breakdown retest of this ascending trend line we spotted here during our live session yesterday. So it has been quite a roller coaster of buys and sells this week, but we were still able to stay afloat with some reasonable amount of profit on this one. And for those who have been part of this journey since the beginning of the week, well done to you for being on standby to have capitalized on these trading opportunities. Now that we're going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? What is our expectations as regards to this current market structure? So personally, I already have a buy position, and I've of course moved my stop loss to break even on this one. So I will be sharing with you why I have bought and what I think you can do around the structure. Now, the first thing I want us to observe is the fact that price still remains below that descending trend line we spotted at the beginning of the week. Remember, so let me just highlight it out here and leave it there so that we can continue to see how important this trend line is for us today. Now, looking at the structure here, one thing I observed this morning while trying to decipher where price action will likely go is that as soon as price got into the 1,912, we begin to see buy pressure resume around that area. And in fact, this led into higher lows, which of course, whenever we see higher lows in the market, it's a clear sign that buyers are gradually gaining momentum behind the scenes. Then in addition to the situation here, I'm beginning to notice a potential reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure. So you saw the first touch here, and the inability of price action to break down the previous low here was good enough for me to consider this to be a potential double bottom structure. And you know how we do it. Whenever we identify a potential transition of price action into a reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify a neckline which we were going to be using to validate the reversal pattern. So we are looking forward to a breakout of that neckline to confirm that now we can be part of an uptrend move. So this was simply what I saw here this morning. So what this simply means is that our center of focus for today is going to be within the $1,916 level and of course the $1,912 level. Now with the breakout of the 1,916, I had my buy position triggered here with the hopes that price action will continue to the upside. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby to capitalize on that move. Now, for those who had missed out on these opportunities, well, there are two ways to which we can take advantage of this move. Now, one of it is this. Now, I was able to connect the series of lower higher lows here to give me this ascending trend line you'll see on your screen right now, which of course we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today. So as long as price remains above this ascending trend line, we shall feel comfortable in our buy position, while we also look out for more opportunities to buy the XAUUSD at this juncture in the market. So since we have a breakout of the 1,916, there is still a likelihood that price could still come back to retest that structure to give us an opportunity to join that uptrend continuation. Now, if price action goes on to break out of the $1,919.50 level, which also shares a confluence with that descending trend line, then at this point in time, I want to be thinking of adding more position to my existing trade, as the breakout of that descending trend line will be a clear sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish momentum. So if that happens, we'll continue to buy. Then remember, we have levels such as the $1,922.50 level to capitalize on more buying opportunity. We also have the 1,925 level to add more position, and of course we have the 1,930 if price action gets thus far to add more position to our existing trade. So this is how we are going to be buying the XAUUSD for today. So you want to mark these levels out and see how important both the ascending trend line here and that descending trend line is to this current market structure. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity here, you know how we do it in this community. We also want to keep tabs with the opposite direction too as well. So what happens here if sellers come in? What do we want to see on this chart that will make us feel comfortable to sell the XAUUSD? Well, it's quite simple. So we already have this ascending trend line here figured out. So we will need price to break down the ascending trend line to give us a sign that we might likely be going bearish. And in fact, the ascending trend line also shares a confluence with the $1,916 level. So a breakdown of both the 1,916 and the ascending trend line would be all we need here to get ready to sell. And we scale down to our lower time frame, multiple retest of the structure will further confirm that truly we can go bearish on this one. Then a further breakdown of the 1,912 will welcome more selling opportunities. But at this point in time, I doubt if that will happen actually. But if it does happen, we want to be on standby to capitalize on that move. So at the moment, I'm holding on to a bullish bias, and anything above the ascending trend line and the 1,916 is all we need to feel comfortable in our current buy position. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD. So let's see if there are any questions whatsoever before we draw the curtain for today's trading session, and of course for this week's session on the XTrend Speed Live. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds off to see if there are any questions, and you can as well use that time to mark out those levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your trading activities